hear me out. I think it's for the best that no one from this point on mentions anything that happens in the real world around Wanda. It's for the best. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you'll be among the first to know. WandaVision episode 3 is here, and I don't have to call it that anymore, as we have now titled all the episodes. Episode 1 and 2 are no longer known that, but this episode is called Now in Color. It's the first one of these episodes that actually is all in color. Sort of a homage to how, as television continued on throughout the decades, color became a big part of it. And this one, the aesthetic, the comedy that they're paying most of their homages to is to the Brady Bunch. The house is stylized like the Brady Bunch, uh, kitchen, whatnot. Some of the styling of the comedy is. But if you want to get into all the sitcoms and the comedy and what Brady Bunch means to the show, we got an entire podcast about that we call Hollywood Already Did It Presents a history of sitcoms through the eyes of WandaVision, which you can find here on the YouTube channel, as well as anywhere the podcast will play with myself, co-host Blake Schultz, and guest host Jamie Jarrett. But today we're going to talk more about the actual episode and not so much into the comedy side. So unfortunately, we're going to have to get a little spoilery on this one. That's just the nature of the way this series presents itself. I didn't do so much on 1 and 2 just because I kind of wanted to get people a time to acclimate to the show. So episode 3 picks up where episode 2 left off, where all of a sudden Wanda and Vision are pregnant. Now they're in color, and so we go through the whole rigmarole of what a typical sitcom is, Brady Bunch style, Brady Bunch comedy. Not so much as the rapid fire like Dick Van Dyke or some of the practical like magical stuff that Bewitched went through. It's a little bit more straightforward, and I think that's why for me, out of the 3 episodes that we've gotten so far, this is the one that I comedy sitcom wise that I like the least. I just don't think I think Elizabeth has a lot more to play with in this, and her ranges of changing from happy to sad to in pain to just terrifying are all fantastic. I just don't think there's a lot of meat on the bone for the script for this particular sitcom, and so a lot of the comedic aspects of this will fall flat. Whereas I think the other two were pitch perfect in the way that they represented the sitcom era that they were part of. That said, I do think this episode is the strongest on the back end, where it does a lot to intertwine into what the MCU world is and to sort of give us a bigger peel back of some of the batshit crazy things that are happening with Wanda and her life. So if anyone has been paying attention, this show acts as like an adult Easter egg hunting mission. Like there's clues, tips, and words and objects and icons all throughout this. Just the names of the kids plays a part into comic book lore. The commercial, once again, actually ties into a show that some people don't consider to be canon, but is kind of canon now with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Mentioning the Hydra soap, which was mentioned by Colson in there. So it's a lot of little nods, points here. The biggest thing for me in this episode, which is why I think the back half works so well, this is the first time in a long time that we've gotten to hear Wanda mention her brother, and to mention her brother in a way that it was painful for her, or that she deeply missed her brother. We haven't gotten that in a while, and some of that's just because there's so many things happening in the world that she probably has shown sadness and distraught for her brother's passing off camera. But when we're on camera, we're focusing on other characters too. So it's good when we spend a little bit more intimate time, and it's clear that it still affects her. It's also clear that Wanda, who I am of the belief is doing this to herself to sort of create a world where she used to watch old school TV and used to love these sitcoms, and it felt perfect. It felt like home, and because she didn't get to live that life with Vision, because we all know Vision's not here anymore, that she's recreating this world to keep that magic alive. And anyone that does anything to break that or get people to believe otherwise, she immediately flips. It's sort of like an alien an alien body or a disease entering into a host, and you know and you're aware of it, you got like, I gotta expel this or do something to change that. And it's weird because she reacts to it differently. When Vision seems to be catching on to what's happening in this world, she either says no or reverses it, or just in this one does a stop cut and go right back to where it was good, and then kind of do a choose your own adventure so that Vision goes the correct way to keep the this plate of lies, magic, and story going. When Geraldine questions about Petrio and says that, hey, didn't your brother die? The look that Wanda gives, kudos to Elizabeth, the look and switch that Wanda gives is one of the most terrifying looks that I've ever seen in my entire life. Um, it's one of those, they don't say it on the Disney show, but if they could, with a look can say, what the fuck did you just say? That's what Wanda said to Geraldine. And I, the way that camera is shot, the way that, how tense that all feels, and the fact that we're getting information from outside that Vision is realizing that of all the stuff that's happening in this world, Geraldine is the outlier and probably shouldn't be here. It is a very tense moment. And just the response that when Vision comes back in and Wanda's, and he asks where Geraldine went, Wanda's like, she went home. So we all know that means she expelled the poison or whatever was trying to invade and break the fantasy that she has going, uh, and it's fascinating because that look she has is just, it's, you don't want to cross this woman on the wrong side. And what really is crazy is that when this is all said and done, I feel like we're going to, as we get further and further into WandaVision, we're going to get further and further into the sadness and just extreme pain and hurt that Wanda is going through. Uh, and I both look forward to it and am terrified of it. If you pay attention, there's some other Easter eggs here and there. Agnes is wearing a brooch that I think everybody's now sort of caught on, which is always around, which is a character that is a part of this. When we spit Geraldine out, she spits out into the real world where we can see sort of almost like a Truman Show shield that is occurring wherever Wanda is creating this. She's been spit out and Sword all sort of come around her. We don't quite know who's on Sword. We have never really seen Sword in its full form in the MCU. And it's also interesting, while I think everybody's of the belief, I am certainly of the belief that Wanda is creating this world and is starting to get too big. I don't know if she started this on herself. That's where it gets a little dicey with me. I think she's definitely controlling this and is in in her head with all of this, but I don't know if she gave herself the impetus to begin this, and that's where it's going to be fun to kind of dissect and keep going along as we go on this road. I think it's interesting because this is one of the few episodes out of the 3 episodes they all sort of blend into. The first one was a direct cut; it clean went to the almost like I Love Lucy, but the close frame and then cut. And we got the post credit of the remote. Second one bleeds directly in because it switched to color, and then we pick up here. It's going to be interesting for the fourth because I think there's going to have to be a complete switch somewhere in the real world because it looks like we move up to the 80s. It looks like, don't quote me on it, but some of the stuff that they look like they're using the house stuff, stylized of the kitchen of Family Ties. So it looks like that might be the 80s sitcoms that they're using. And so if we switch to the 80s, there was no correct or direct blend to get to that point. So I think I would have to imagine that we start episode 4 with the sword stuff to kind of tie in whatever happens to Monica, Geraldine, and fix and get caught up with that, and then come back into the world where we're somewhere in the 80s based on whatever happens. Look, I know for some people this is a slow burn. I'm in. I like this slow descent into madness and these little peaks that we get here and there. This is the biggest peak that we got, and I was terrified. I think we're going to get some stuff where she's just going to explode and her heart is going to be on her sleeve and it's going to be detrimental. But I'm still all in. I can't wait for the next episode. And what did you guys think about episode 3 of WandaVision? Now in color. Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. Are you still in? Is this too slow? Is this not tight in your bag? You're not feeling it? Or are you willing to kind of see where this all goes when this all comes together as a 3 hour plus film? Watching it as one, do you think this might move at a better pace if you get it all at once as opposed to 25-minute, 30-minute segments? Like always, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDid@gmail.com. If I already talked about the podcast, go ahead and listen to that. We also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about classic films like Gone with the Wind or Back to the Future, Tropic Thunder, and discuss whether those films that were released back in the day can do some of the things that they got away with back then today through the eyes of 2021. You can find that also wherever podcasts are played. But that's it. Like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.